you guys got pizzas last night?
I didn't think we handed out that many pizzas.
I gotta know this though. Who got the pizza that we left in the elevator?
Yeah, who got that elevator pizza? Over here? Congratulations, that was a great pizza. Hey listen, we're so excited for today. We got an awesome service. YC Worship is back in the building. They're gonna lead us in an incredible time. Ryan Allen is in the house. He's gonna speak and knock it out of the park.
You guys bring your envelopes. We're going to be receiving those pledge cards today, and I want to challenge you to do more as a youth group than you've ever done for Speed the Light before. Speed the Light this year celebrated 75 years as an organization. Yes. And did you know that in those 75 years, this network has given $9 million to Speed the Light? And this last year, your churches were able to send 48,000 water filters to Sierra Leone and Liberia. How many of that? That's amazing. 48,000 because of your giving. But I believe there's more for us to do. There's more missionaries that need our support and our help. And in just a month, in a couple of weeks, there's going to be a group of youth pastors and children's pastors that are going to the country of Greece, where there are still people from Syria that are living in encampments, trying to find a place to live. And what you're doing today, what you're giving, what you're sacrificing today is going to help those families, going to help the missionaries get those people back on their feet, help them find a home, a place. They've been living there for 5-6 years, many of these families. Can you imagine living in a campsite for 6 years and all you receive is whatever's given to you? So I want to challenge you as a group today to do something for Speed the Light this year. If there's anything we can do to help you raise money for Speed the Light, to help the missionaries and help the Syrian refugees, if you buy, we've got some Speed the Light, they're called Save, Rescue, Build. You'll see there's some t-shirts back at the merch table. 100% of those proceeds are going back to those missionaries that are helping the refugees. Pastor Nahum is an incredible youth rep, and who's here from Victor? And he's going to share about an opportunity for you for this summer.
You know, how many of you guys would love to go to Mexico this summer? Come on, who would love to have some great tacos right now? Okay, look, at the end of the day, one of the greatest ways that you can get a heart for missions is by getting on the mission field. And as the SoCal Network, as SoCal students, we're getting excited about our Rancho de Sus Niños Mexico mission trip this summer, July 8th. Through the 12th. And you know what's great about this trip is that as you prepare your heart even to give, think about the people in this orphanage in Rancho Sus Niños that never had an opportunity to hear about Jesus, never had hope, but because a loving group of people came with a vision from God and made an impact in this community. Now hundreds, if not even thousands and thousands of kids and students have been saved. How many of you guys can give praise to God for that? Come on, celebrate that. And I want to encourage you, in the back, Rancho Sus Niños, the mission is available in a booth. Check out this deal. For $378, you can go on a 6-day missions trip to Mexico. The desire is that by the time you graduate from high school, that you go on a missions experience because God wants to use you.
Awesome.
It's only going to be life-changing if you guys take it home.
burning star, a signify Voice we sing, God is so good. God, you're so good. We exalt you. God, you're so good. You're so good, Lord. God, you're so good. You're so good. You're so good to me. Let it be a sweet sound to Jesus.
My hope is built. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest fame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. Come on, let's sing that again. My hope is built. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. Come on, that's our hope this morning. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but only trust in Jesus' name. Come on, from the front to the back, every voice we declare, Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He's Lord.
On Egypt, but there was a conversation that takes place between Pharaoh and Moses that absolutely rocked the course of the Egyptian people, and it is going to rock the course of your life this morning. Exodus chapter 8, starting right here in verse 1. 7 days passed after the Lord struck the Nile. Then the Lord said to Moses, go to Pharaoh and say to him, this is what the Lord says. Let my people go so that they may worship me. You understand that God desires nothing more than for your worship of him? Let my people go so they may worship me. Not so that they can give me their money, not so that they can spend more time, but so that they can worship me. God desires your worship. If you refuse to let them go, I will plague your whole country with frogs. Now at this time, I asked Pastor Tony Orlando if I could release 10,000 frogs in the auditorium. So in just a second, you're gonna feel little things around your feet. Relax, it's okay, they're just frogs, okay? Just kidding, that's a joke, that's not for real. They wouldn't let me do it. The hotel says something about sanitation, I don't know. The Nile will teem with frogs. They will come up into your palaces, into your bedrooms, into your bed, into the houses of your officials and in your people, into your ovens and kneading troughs. The frogs will go up on you and your people and all of your officials. You understand something about sin? Sin contaminates every part of your life, not just the part that you want it to. Can I tell you something about your secret sin? First of all, it's not a secret. God knows. And second of all, your secret sin isn't just contaminating the part of life that you think it is. Your secret sin is contaminating every part of your life, and it's ruining every part of your life slowly, because that's what sin does. And then when it's fully grown, it gives birth to death. I'm going to drop down here to verse 9. Moses said to Pharaoh, I leave to you the honor of setting the time for me to pray, for you and your officials and your people, that you and your houses may be rid of these frogs, except for those that remain in the Nile. And Pharaoh said, tomorrow. There's an amazing thing that takes place. Moses is herding sheep in the wilderness. And he's on the backside of a mountain, and he's chasing this one sheep, because sheep just aren't very smart animals. They don't understand they're supposed to stay in one place. And he follows the sheep up the side of a mountain, and he gets to where the sheep is, and there's a bush, and the bush is on fire. That's not abnormal. What's abnormal is that the bush started to speak to him. That's not normal. And then what's even less normal is that Moses spoke back to the burning bush. I don't know about you, but that dude had to have been on some serious stuff, if you know what I'm saying. You're sitting there on the backside of a mountain and a bush starts talking to you and Moses starts speaking back to a burning bush. And the bush says, I need you to go to Egypt. Moses says, you don't understand, God. I just came from Egypt. I just ran from there. I'm a wanted man. I've murdered somebody. And Pharaoh doesn't necessarily like me very much. And God says, go back and I need you to deliver 3 million of my people into a promised land so they can come worship me. So Moses gets all of his stuff together and he heads back and he finds his brother Aaron, and he and Aaron approach Pharaoh with the message of, you need to let the people of God go so they can go worship him. And Pharaoh says no, and so there's the plague where the entire Nile and all the water in Egypt gets turned to blood, and then following that one is this plague of frogs. Now why in the world would God plague the Egyptian people with frogs? That's the most random thing. It's totally ridiculous, like a bunch of little Kermits running around Egypt. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Why in the world will God use frogs? Well, the reason God used frogs is because frogs were a god in Egypt. Frogs were worshipped in Egypt. People literally went to an altar and they sacrificed at the altar of a giant frog. They let their lives be dictated by the frog. They worshiped the frog. They gave everything they could to the frog. And so God is trying to make a point that the thing that you choose to worship, I have total control over. The thing that you have chosen to bow down to and to worship in your life, Egypt, I have total dominion over. The thing that you have sacrificed to and the thing that you're asking for direction, I am giving direction to. And so we look at the Egyptians and we go, I don't understand why in the world worshiping a frog is even a thing. That's totally ridiculous. That makes no sense. Why would anyone bow down and worship at the feet of a frog? And yet God is sitting here this morning looking at you going, I understand that question, but my question is the same to you. Why in the world do you bow down and worship at the feet of something that's as powerless as a frog? Yes, we understand that worshiping frogs is not necessarily like smart. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But neither is worshiping at the feet of people approval. Neither is worshiping at the feet of identity misunderstanding. Neither is worshiping at the feet of a basketball or a football. And don't get me wrong, I love sports. I played sports through college, almost went pro. I wasn't quite good enough, don't judge me. But I understand, but the problem is that we have taken things that have no power, that have no authority in our life, and we place them on an altar and we decide to worship them. And God looks at us and goes, why are you worshiping a powerless object? Don't worry, it's going to get better. We look at Pharaoh and we wonder why he allowed frogs to stay one more night. And God sees you and he wonders why you allow your sin to stay one more night. Moses looks at Pharaoh and he says, I tell you what, I'll give you the opportunity, I'll give you the honor, was his exact word, I'll give you the honor of determining the time in which your plague leaves your land. And Pharaoh, without missing a beat, looks right back at Moses and says, tomorrow, I'm going to live with my garbage one more night. I'm going to hold on to these frogs one more night. I'm not going to let them leave one more night. I'm going to force everything that I am, my entire nation, my family, my people, those I care about, for one more night. They're going to live because of my pride. And we look at Pharaoh and we go, how dumb. Why one more night? And once again, I look at you and I ask, why would you live with your sin one more night? When God has given you the opportunity to determine when he takes your pain and he takes your sin and he takes your garbage, why would you live with it for one more night? Now, as I understand, everybody that came in, they got a little frog on their chair. Is that right? I want you to take your frog. I want you to put it in your hand right now.
I lost it.
Find your frog. Why this frog out? Can you get a zoom in on that? Wrong zoom in, my bad. Look at how small this is. Now can you imagine this being multiplied over 10 billion times? Running all over your house, in the food, in your bed, in your bathroom. When you're not feeling very well and need to run to the bathroom and you open the toilet, there's 1,000 frogs hopping onto your toilet. That's not okay. Can I tell you something? Look at me. This is how your sin starts. This isn't revolutionary. I'm not bringing to you something that's groundbreaking and awe-inspiring and is going to rock your world. I'm just pointing out some truth out of the Word of God that sin starts small, but when you allow sin to go unchecked, it runs rampant through your life. And we look at Pharaoh and we say, why in the world would you allow frogs to stay? God allowed frogs to stay for another day, just like God's allowing some of your problems to stay in your life another day. See, we get mad at God and we blame God for a lot of things, and I don't quite understand it, but also I'm not as smart as some of you guys are. So let me ask you this question. Why is it that we blame God for all of our problems, but we never give him credit for all the good things that go on in our life? Why is it that we blame God when the problems we're refusing to let go of stick around a little bit longer than we were ready for? When God says, I've given you the opportunity to get rid of that problem, you just refuse to let me have it. So I'm going to let it sit around a little bit longer. And then it sits and it dwells and it festers and it gets terrible. It starts to become something nasty in our life. And then it controls us. And then all we have to do is blame God. And all God says is, I gave you an opportunity. You refuse to let it go. See, some of the things that are sitting in your world right now, I am convinced that God has the power to take them away, because my God can do all things through Jesus Christ who gives me strength. However, God is also willing and able to allow some of those problems to stay in your life until you're willing to let them go. God's not going to take something from you that you're not willing to let go. See, the Bible says that God stands at the door and knocks, not that he kicks your door in and forces himself into your house. My God's a gentleman. God's not going to force his way into somebody's life that doesn't want him in their life. So God's going to wait patiently, and he's going to follow you, and he's going to be right there with you. He's never going to leave you. He's never going to forsake you. But the moment you're ready to turn around and actually hand God your anxiety, God will take your anxiety. The moment you're actually ready to let God have your identity, he'll take your identity and he'll give you one back that no one else could have ever given you. The moment you're ready to let go of your sin, God will take your sin and he'll replace it with the fruit of the Spirit, and it will set you free. Understand something here, Youth Convention. I believe the reason why some of the things that you have in your life are still in your life is because you're refusing to let them go, and you're choosing to hold on to them this morning. And then somebody like me, we get up and we have the audacity to challenge you on the thing that you've been worshiping. Like, Pastor Ryan, you don't know my life. You don't understand the household I come from. You don't know the life that I live. You don't know what they've done to me. You don't know what they've said about me. You're right, I don't need to, but God does. See, a lot of us, we worship the God and the idol of people approval. And this is my own personal life. I worshiped at this idol. I sacrificed at this idol. I gave everything I could to the idol of people approval because I cared what you thought about me. And because what you thought about me determined whether or not I had a good day. Can I tell you this morning, I don't care what you think about me anymore. Now, I love you. I say it with a smile. I love you, but your opinion of me does not determine who I become in my life. Because you're not the one who called me. You're not the one who breathed breath into my lungs. You're not the solid ground that I stand on. So therefore, you're not the one that is going to determine who I am and am not. The one who called me. The one who put breath in my lungs. The one who put a coal on my lips. And he filled me with his Spirit. He's the one who I care about now. I'm talking about people who are more concerned with what their neighbor thinks of them than the God who created them thinks of them. We need to quit worshiping at the idol of people approval. Some of us, we worship at the idol of unforgiveness. Can I tell you something about unforgiveness real quick? When you forgive somebody, I believe that part of the reason, I'm just going to look right here at you because you're looking at me really intently, and I like that. And I like your hat. You can give it to me later, no big deal. I think the reason, what's your name? Josh. I think the reason, Josh, why a lot of us have a hard time forgiving somebody is because we think that when we forgive somebody, we're pacifying what they've done to us. What we're doing isn't pacifying what you did to me. What I'm saying is I'm no longer going to allow what you did to me to control me. I'm not going to allow what you did to me to have control over my life, my emotions, my anger, my bitterness. I'm going to be free of the chains of your actions, and I'm going to let that go. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give somebody else. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. And a lot of us, we worship at the idol of unforgiveness because of what they did and they said and they have. And we don't forgive people. Can I tell you, when you don't forgive people, you are not able to forgive anyone. But God has forgiven you, so therefore you must forgive others. Colossians says that we are to forgive as the Lord forgave us. I want to talk about one more idol. I'm going to tackle this subject. And please understand that when I make this comment, I'm not judging you because I don't know you. But understand this, that I love you, and I know a God who loves you more than anything else. And a lot of us, we like to worship at the idol of sexual identity. I real quiet. Not too many amens right now. We like to worship the idol of sexual identity. Can I tell you something? You are so much more than a sexual preference or a sexual endeavor or a sexual experience. That is such a small part of life. And the enemy's a liar. Mike had said it last night, the devil's a liar. Your world is not bigger than your sexual preference, but my God is bigger than anything you've ever done. And this is my statement. Hold on a second. I had a teenager walk into my youth ministry a year ago. This young man was 6'6", 300 pounds. Black kid comes walking in. And he sits down in a chair next to me. And he looks at me and he says, "My name is Miles. And I'm gay. Am I allowed to come to your youth group?" And I looked at him and I said, "Hi, Miles. My name's Ryan. Did we ask you your sexual identity when you walked in tonight?" "No." "Did I say anything about it tonight when you were listening to my sermon?" "No." "Then why do you think that I care?" Can I tell you something, Miles? Your sexual identity is irrelevant to me. What matters to me is your relationship with Jesus. And as long as your relationship with Jesus is going, He's going to point out the things in your life He wants to change. That's not my job. My job is to make sure that you understand who Jesus is and that He loves you. Teenager in this place, hear me. If you have been enthroned and enslaved and encompassed by your sexual preference, that does not matter to me. What matters to me is your relationship with Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the one who made you and He knows you and He's called you. He set you apart. He's put you on firm ground and He has a calling in your life. So please, quit believing the lie of the enemy that your identity is wrapped up in your sexuality. Your identity is wrapped up in the cross. The reality is that anything you're choosing to put before God in your life is your idol. So the question is real simple today. What are you worshiping? What are you putting before God in your life? This is the morning session. It's not supposed to be heavy. Sorry, I don't really follow rules. You can't live in power when you worship a powerless object. You ever wonder why it seems like you have no power to fix the problems in your life? It's because you're worshiping a powerless object. You know the difference between our belief and everyone else on the planet's belief? It's that the God we serve isn't dead, He's alive. He's not a statue that sits on my mantle. He's not a thought process. He's not an opinion or an identity. My God is alive. That's what gives you and I hope. That's the difference between us and everybody else, is that Jesus Christ is in His grave. He's out of His grave. That's why I don't live a powerless life. I live a life full of power because the God I worship is full of power. The second thing I want to say to you this morning is that God can use small things and bring people to a realization of His power. See, God used a burning bush to get Moses. He used a fish to attract people. And He used a donkey to get a hold of Balaam. God can use small things to get a hold of you. Doesn't matter how big the problem may seem in your life, to God it's not big. God could have used bears, lions, and alligators, but the statement was more powerful when He selected the weak to humble the strongest nation on the earth at that time. Worship team, can I have you guys come on up here, please? This is a cheap imitation of the glory and the love and the grace and the mercy of a living Savior. This is not worth it. And it's time you let go of your play. It's time you let go of your frog. And it's time that you let God replace it with the fruit of His Spirit. I'm sitting backstage and we're singing So Will I. And the Spirit of God says, there's a generation who has been worshiping at the altar of a false God. And I desire that they leave that land and they worship me. Just like God called Israel out of Egypt to worship Him in the desert. God is calling you out of your false land to worship Him. And it starts when you lay down your play. You let go of your frog. This is sin, and sin will destroy. I'm not saying you have to be perfect. I'm not saying you got to do what everyone else thinks you got to do. I'm not giving you a Bible study plan or a prayer regimen. But I'm promising you the same thing that God promises me. That if my people, His people, who are called by His name, will humble themselves if they will pray and seek his face and turn from their wicked ways. Then he will hear from heaven. He will forgive their sin. He'll heal their land. I know we talk about generations that start movements, but there's never been a generation more poised for a movement than right now. There's never been a more lost generation, a more confused generation, a more substantial generation than right now. And the reason for that is because the enemy is trying to get you to buy into cheap imitations. He's trying to get you to buy into a cheap imitation of what God has been offering you all along. So youth pastors, I need you guys to make sure that you are distinguished. I know you're at. We even got room up here in the front if some of you want to join here in the front. Here's what we're going to do. Teenager, if you're ready to be rid of your frog and you're not going to wait until tomorrow. If you're ready to be rid of your plague and you're ready to let God replace it with something better today, then what you're going to do is get out of your chair and you're going to put it in the hand of your youth pastor. And youth pastor, listen to me. When you've collected every frog that your teenagers are willing to give, you walk into the front of this stage and you put it on this altar. And we're sacrificing the thing we've been worshiping to at the idol and the altars that we've been worshiping to. We are going to sacrifice that to a living God. And then we're going to sing. We're going to worship. Because if we don't cry out, the rocks will. And I don't know about you, I'm not going to be out worshipped by a rock. So I'm going to count to 3, and when I say 3, move through Southern California. Can you imagine what the Spirit of God is going to do when He sweeps through your high school? I can't imagine the outbreak of revival that is going to take place in your city because you were willing to lay down your frog. I can't imagine how many people you're going to bring a youth group with you next Wednesday because you're letting go of people approval. You don't care what they think about you. You're going to get their butt to church because they need the same Jesus you do. I can't imagine what's going to happen. Any more youth pastors bringing up frogs? You can lift your hands. We're not scared. Let's go. Come on, lift your voice, teenager. Let heaven hear you. There's a lot of people, because we get it sometimes where people say, what do you guys do all day? Youth pastor, you just hang out with students? It's not even a real job. Can I tell you, your youth pastors, they pray over you, they weep over you, they love you so much. We are here because our heart, our calling is to reach young people for Jesus. And as we reach young people for Jesus, our calling is to see them just grow and be discipled and be rooted and have a relationship with Jesus that's going to last a lifetime. And it's not always easy. There's moments when it's just clicking and every message is just right on, everything is going, it's just happening. And then there's moments too where a dry season comes where the messages aren't coming so fast. And
And there's dry seasons where students aren't showing up as much as they used to, and it's so easy at that point to say, what am I doing wrong? But can I remind you, youth pastors, there's seasons that happen. But here's the thing, if you're in a bad season, every season ends and a new one begins. So here's what I want to do. I've asked Lucas to come up here because Lucas is in his senior year. He's been with me. I actually let Lucas in our youth ministry a year early, so he's been with me since 5th grade. He's in his 12th year now, 12th grade of school, and his final year as a student with us. But here's what I'm going to have Lucas do. I'm going to have Lucas pray for me because I'm his youth pastor. I want you guys to find your youth pastor. And I know you got to have to push and crowd a little bit. I want you to go find your youth pastor. I want you guys to put your hands on him. And as Lucas is praying for me, I want you guys to be praying for your youth pastor. Maybe they're in a great season, maybe they're in a dry season, but you are their students. I want you to surround them. I want you to pray over them. Hey, and don't pray quietly like you're just praying in your mind.